All right, so throughout the early 1910s, a series of articles promoting alligator farming appeared in newspapers all across California. Start an alligator farm and grow rich, they said. Gators are in high demand. People want purses made from their skin, and cufflinks made from their teeth, and whistles made from their bones. According to these articles, the market for alligator products was absolutely massive and already well established. Just take a look at all the prosperous alligator farms that are thriving down in Florida and Mexico and Louisiana. And yeah, sure, alligators are native to those places, but still, there's no reason why the business models of those southern alligator farms wouldn't work just as well in sunny California. It's a pretty interesting pitch, right? And apparently a compelling one too, because the early 19th century soon bore witness to an absolute explosion of California alligator farms. Everywhere from San Francisco to Los Angeles to San Diego to Manteca to Santa Cruz to Modesto to Venice soon found themselves playing host to this experimental new form of industry. This was a huge business craze. Excitement was in the air. A lot of people thought they could make a lot of money farming alligators in California. And for the most part, they didn't at all. The vast majority of California alligator farms closed up shop within a few years of opening, and oftentimes in rather spectacular fashion too. Here, let's take a closer look at that farm built in Venice, and you'll see what I mean. So, according to the local newspapers, the Venice, California alligator farm was established in November of 1915. And then, less than a year later, the owner of the farm almost got his hand torn off while trying to feed the gators. According to the owner, the gator tried to use jiu-jitsu on him and sent him to the hospital, and apparently that was enough. The owner told the papers that he had completely lost confidence in alligator farming, and barely a year later the farm was closed up for good. Just one example in a very long line of casualties. But of course, as you might have guessed by now, there was an exception. The Los Angeles Alligator Farm, a Southern California institution that stuck around for more than 75 years. The place first opened up in 1908 when the farm's owner, Frank Ernest, had some alligators shipped to LA via train, and then the farm stayed in business all the way up until 1984. Quite the run of success. If you're over 45-ish and you grew up in LA, then there's a pretty good chance that you remember this place. It was a big deal for decades. So now the question is why? Why was this farm in particular so successful while all those other California farms couldn't stay afloat? Well, the short answer is that the Los Angeles Alligator Farm actually ignored the advice of that newspaper article that I used to open the video. Like, remember how that article made a big deal about how there's this huge market for alligator products, and it made it sound like the whole reason those southern farms were successful was because they were just churning out alligator hides and teeth and bones? Well, it turns out that it was actually kind of like an open secret amongst all those southern farms that alligator purses and cufflinks and whistles and whatever were really more of a side business rather than a main source of income. See, although alligator hides were undoubtedly valuable, it usually took well over a decade for a baby gator to reach adulthood. Meaning that if you wanted to sell alligator hides, then it was way more cost effective to just go out and trap wild adult gators than it was to try and raise babies on a farm. And so, rather than depend on alligator products, the southern farms turned instead towards alternative revenue streams. The first of which was tourism. A pretty obvious one, right? Of course people are going to want to pay to see a big giant pit full of alligators, especially if they're visiting from up north or from Europe or anywhere else that doesn't already have wild gators. It's kind of a no-brainer. The second money-making venture, though, was a little more interesting. A lot of southern alligator farms turned a profit by selling live baby gators to zoos and parks and other animal exhibits. Because those gators got to come from somewhere, right? So why not try and get a piece of the market? Now, at this point, you might be thinking that the Los Angeles farm was successful because they followed the model of these southern farms that I just laid out right there. And for the most part, you'd be right. The Los Angeles alligator farm definitely sold baby alligators, and they definitely turned their farm into a tourist attraction. But they also innovated a little bit. Like, for example, the Los Angeles farm sold their baby gators through the mail. Just look at this picture I found of the farm staff loading up some packages. Or this picture of a little boy posing with a fresh box of gators. Reportedly, the Los Angeles farm shipped out hundreds of gators a day, and mostly for pets too. This was not like the southern farms who were like giving gators to zoos. This was direct to consumer. We're going to send a baby alligator through the mail to anyone and everyone who wants one. And if that's not enough, they also just sold gators to people right at the farm too. You could just walk in on any random day and walk out with a baby alligator, which, as I'm sure you can guess, sometimes led to trouble. Like in May of 1917, for example, when a woman staying at a hotel in LA pulled up her sheets and screamed because an alligator was snuggled up cozy in her bed. Apparently, some guy visiting from New Orleans had gone to the alligator farm that day, got a little homesick, bought a baby alligator to remind him of Louisiana, and then promptly lost the gator at the hotel. Or how about this? Here's an even better story. One time in 1909, a tourist from the East Coast bought an alligator from the farm and then later got himself arrested for public drunkenness. Reportedly, the arresting officer went to search the man's pockets, and holy cow, this guy's got a baby alligator squirming around in his coat. The best detail from this story is that the man asked the cops to let him sleep with his new pet at the jail, but the cops refused because they didn't want the other inebriates in the holding cell to see some new guy walk in with a baby alligator and think that they were seeing things. But as interesting as all that is, truly, we're just getting started. The Los Angeles alligator farm had plenty more innovative ideas for turning a profit. Like, hey, what if we taught the alligators to go down a slide? Yeah, this was actually one of the farm's biggest selling points. I never found any specific information on how exactly they trained the gators to do this, but apparently the alligators would march right up to the top of the slide and then there they go, pretty much on command. And occasionally the farm would also get people to go down the slide with the gators, or sometimes even on the gators, like in this truly incredible photo. And by the way, I should mention that that woman there is not even one of the trainers or farm staff or anything like that. That is literally just a random Hollywood actress that the farm hired to take this photo as a publicity stunt, which is something that the farm did quite a bit. See, just like those southern farms, the LA farm depended quite a bit on tourism. And so they were constantly hunting for publicity. All throughout the early 1900s, the farm was coming up with crazy ideas for drawing the attention of the press. Like, what if we had a guy do a handstand on a gator? Or what if we had a little boy go inside the gator enclosure and pick up a bunch of the baby gators? Or what if we had a baby ride a gator like a horse? Or what if we had a dog ride a gator? Or what if we put a whole bunch of alligators on top of a dog? Or what if we held a race between a tortoise and a gator? Or what if we taught a gator to pull a canoe? Or what if we had a blind sculptor come down to the farm and model one of our gators by touch? That one is actually pretty cool. Or what if the farm's owner brought an alligator to court for some reason? Or what if we had a 16-year-old girl as one of our gator wranglers? Or what if we had a tenor from the Metropolitan Theater come down and sing to the gators? Or what if we took this absolutely awesome picture of a gator pretending to drive a car? Or what if we had somebody play accordion while riding on a gator? Or what if we just put some gators in this little girl's dress and here's a baby in the enclosure with like a bajillion gators all over, and now we're gonna smoke cigarettes and read magazines on top of a gator, and here, let's take a gator for a walk on a leash and we're gonna put a little bow on its head, and let's give a gator some milk out of a baby's bottle, and let's get some Marines to come down and pose with a gator, and here's a newspaper article about how girls are gonna start wearing live baby alligators as bracelets. And what if we put a toddler in the adult alligator enclosure, and then we take the craziest photo that I've ever seen of this kid standing like 18 inches away from 15 alligators with no adult or no trainer in sight. Like, just look at this picture. So as you can see, the Los Angeles alligator farm loved a good picture. Like, I could have made that little montage there twice as long if I wanted to. Like, there are tons and tons of crazy pictures of this place. But I gotta say, out of all of them, my very favorite has got to be this photo. Or rather, this series of photos. What you are looking at here is a bunch of women eating a meal at a table that's half in the water while a bunch of alligators are swarming around them. And there's also a guy who I think is a trainer watching over everything while dressed like a line cook for some reason. Just beautiful. This is actually a somewhat famous photo too. Like, you can find a lot of blog posts and TikToks of people talking about this image. And understandably, most people find this picture and they assume that this must be some kind of like gimmick dinner package that the farm offers, right? Like, the farm has some kind of special program where guests can pay to eat at a table that's inside the gator enclosure. And well, yeah, that would definitely be on brand for the alligator farm. That's not what's going on here. The reality is even funnier. See, this is not a party for the women. This is a party for the alligators. Yeah, this is a birthday bash for 2 of the gators, and those women are party guests that the farm invited for the big gator extravaganza. And I guess the line cook is standing there with a big stick in his hand in case the gators start partying a little too hard. By the way, I also want to point out that the farm tried to claim here that one of the 2 gators that they were celebrating was turning 100 years old, and the other was turning 150 years old. Which is actually a great example of another thing that the Los Angeles alligator farm liked to do. And that is blatantly make stuff up. Yeah, the farm was constantly exaggerating the ages of its gators. Like, in real life, no gator in history has ever verifiably lived past 100 years old, but the Los Angeles alligator farm might tell you that they have 100-year-old gators and 150-year-old gators and 175-year-old gators and 235-year-old gators and even 500-year-old alligators. And if that's not enough, if you're lucky, they also might tell you their secret for capturing wild gators over in New Orleans. See, one of the favorite tricks of the farm's trainers was to hypnotize an alligator by flipping it onto its back and then tickling its tummy. And there's actually a lot of pictures out there of the trainers doing this. But the real funny part here is that some of the trainers might tell you, as they're doing this little demonstration, that this is actually the method that they use for catching alligators down in Louisiana. Yeah, they just come by in a boat and they jump out and hypnotize every alligator that they see, and then the next day a second boat comes by and picks up all the hypnotized gators that have just been laying there on the shore for 24 hours. So as you can see, showmanship was a major factor in the success of the alligator farm. But it also raises a pretty important question. Did all those theatrics ever backfire? Did anyone ever get hurt at the Los Angeles alligator farm? Well, the answer is yeah, of course they did. Like, injuries weren't super common by any means, but every couple of years, a pretty harrowing story would show up in the local papers. Like, here's a good example. In 1925, one of the farm's owners was trying to trim some tree branches when he slipped and fell 15 feet into a concrete pool filled with some of the largest alligators on the farm. Apparently, the guy was too badly injured to move, so a bunch of trainers had to leap into the enclosure and fight off the alligators. Or how about this? In 1910, a trainer had to spend some time recovering in bed because one of the gators bit his leg during a photo shoot. And in 1921, a trainer had his finger bitten off while he was feeding the gators. And in 1960, one of the trainers spent several weeks in an iron lung because an Australian tiger snake bit him at the farm's reptile house. And finally, probably the most harrowing of all the injuries I could find, in July of 1925, the nephew of the farm's owner was watching his uncle feed the gators when he apparently leaned a little bit too far over the fence, and one of the gators jumped up and bit two of the kid's fingers off. Also, a couple of things that I wanted to point out about that list of injuries. Number one, nobody ever died at the alligator farm, and number two, everybody who got hurt was connected to the farm staff somehow, either a trainer or a relative of a trainer or something like that. At least as far as I can tell, no guest was ever seriously wounded at the Los Angeles alligator farm, and nobody ever died, which is either really, really impressive or really, really lucky, considering that, again, they were regularly taking pictures that looked like this. But hey, I feel like we're just about nearing the end of the video now, so I want to clue you in on one last little detail about the alligator farm. Or rather, one last revenue stream for the farm. See, being right in LA meant that the farm was right near Hollywood, and sometimes Hollywood might need an alligator for a movie shoot. And since there was really no other place to go in Southern California if you wanted to rent an alligator, the Los Angeles alligator farm pretty much became the exclusive provider of alligator actors. Like, just one of the farm's gators alone supposedly appeared in over 500 movies. Like, just for some quick examples, you can see the farm's gators in Lure of the Wilderness, which came out in 1952, and You Can't Cheat an Honest Man from 1939, and Road to Bali from 1952, and Land of the Pharaohs from 1955, just to name a few. And so, if there's anything that you take away from this video, any situation where you can actually use the information that I've shared with you today, it's this. You're watching a Hollywood movie with some friends that came out roughly between 1910 and 1960, and an alligator shows up on screen. If that happens, you can point at the TV and say, hey, a little bit of movie trivia for you guys. Did you know that that alligator came from the Los Angeles alligator farm? And just on probability alone, you're probably gonna be right. Or at the very least, who the hell is gonna prove you wrong? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.